My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. How much meaning there can be in a single word. And there's a word in today's Gospel which in both the Greek and the Latin is only 4 letters. In Greek it's thelo, and in Latin it is volo. This word means I want, or it is my wish, or as it is translated in some texts, of course I want to. And that, of course I want to, in fact, is like a window into the heart of Jesus. Because in this scene, Jesus has been approached by a poor leper. Leprosy, you remember, is a terrible disease. It disfigures a person terribly, leads to their death, but also to their social ostracization. They're outcasts. Nobody wants to go near them, of course. And then by law, they have to keep away from people. You can imagine how much this poor leper would have prayed to be cured of his disease without that prayer being granted. And perhaps he had that terrible thought, like you and I sometimes have, that God could hear his prayers but was simply indifferent to his sufferings. What a terrible thought, thinking that Jesus sees my sufferings, hears me praying to be relieved of them, but really doesn't care, that he is indifferent. However, this leper hasn't given up on prayer, and he approaches Jesus with these words, "If you want to, you can cure me." It's an interesting way of putting the prayer to Jesus. If you want to, you can cure me. And what follows in the Gospel next is really very important, because we are told that Jesus felt sorry for him. Feeling sorry for him, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him. So Jesus is not at all indifferent to his sufferings. That would be a terrible mistake. Jesus feels, we can imagine, deeply sorry for him. And he loves him. And he stretches out his hand and he touches him. A leper, you can imagine that not even his own mother would touch him. And yet Jesus touches this leper with all that affection and that concern, as if to say, of course I feel very sorry for you. I'm not in the least bit indifferent to your sufferings. And this is borne out by the words that Jesus says, of course I want to. Volo, thelo, of course I want to. In other words, how could you doubt that I want you to be cured? How could you doubt that I am moved by your sufferings? And so these words and these actions of Jesus are not just for the poor leper, they're for you and for me. Jesus says these words to each one of us. Don't for a moment think that I don't want you to be happy. Don't think that I am indifferent to your sufferings. You have to realize that when you suffer, I suffer. And Jesus, showing how deeply he wants the end of this man's suffering, we're told in the Gospel that he said to him, "Be cured." And the leprosy left him at once, and he was cured. I think it would be good for us to pray like that, maybe now in this time of prayer, for the things that cause us to suffer. If you want to, you can cure me. If you want to, Lord, you can change that situation. You can end that illness of mine or another person's. You can resolve that situation if you want to. It's also an act of faith. We're saying to Jesus, I know that you can, but also that you want my happiness. However, there's also another little important thing. When you pray, when I pray, we always have to add on a little addition. If you want, if you want, if it is the best thing. So in other words, I don't, Lord, doubt for a moment that you want my happiness, that you will grant me this petition if it is for the best, but whatever you want. There was a young girl called Alexia González-Barros. Alexia González-Barros, Spanish girl who died in 1985 at the age of 14 after almost a year's battle with cancer. She was proclaimed or declared venerable by Pope Francis in 2017. Hopefully someday she'll be canonized. And she prayed like that. She had a great love of life, great lively schoolgirl. And so she really dearly loved life, and she prayed to be cured, of course, during those 10 months of her sickness. Jesus, I want to be healed. But if you don't want that, I want what you want. It's a lovely addition to the prayer. She asks for it. I want to be healed. But, that's very important, but if you don't want, I want what you want. She, in fact, prayed also very intensely for intentions that her friends would give her. And she had these written on a piece of paper, which she would put under her pillow on her sick bed. And especially at times of when she would receive Holy Communion, she would take out this slip of paper with the intentions of her friends and pray for them to our Lord. And it appears that when she prayed for things, invariably she got them. Because at one point her mother heard her praying next door. Her mother was outside her bedroom and could hear her. She was praying to Jesus out loud. And I think it was during Holy Communion. And she said this, Jesus, when I ask for favors for my friends, you grant them. But when I ask for favors for myself, you don't grant them. So you know what? I don't love you. Now, when the mother heard that, she was kind of shocked. And she went into the room and said, Alexia, you cannot say that. Alexia simply said, Mother, don't be silly. Jesus knows I'm not serious. Which is lovely. In other words, it's kind of like as if she were trying to twist the arm of Jesus with this prayer, but always, even though she was really only joking, she kind of put it up to him, but then was really what she was saying, of course, if you don't want it, then I don't want it. If today were not Sunday, we would be celebrating the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, commemorating those wonderful apparitions in 1858 of Our Lady to another 14-year-old girl, this time Saint Bernadette Soubirous. And Bernadette reported that in one of these apparitions of Our Lady, there were several of them, Our Lady had told her that she could not promise to make me happy in this world, but in the next. It's very striking. So that Our Lady could see that Bernadette was going to suffer in this life, and she wouldn't be spared all of that suffering. So she would suffer here on earth, but not in heaven. And we couldn't imagine for a moment that Our Lady was indifferent to the sufferings or at times of unhappiness of Saint Bernadette during her life on earth. But of course she knew that her happiness and her suffering in this world, like yours and mine, is only fleeting. And that what really matters is the eternal happiness of heaven. So, just like some mothers might give all mothers at some point give their children bitter medicine in order for the child to be healthy and happy afterwards, Our Lady and God Himself allows us to suffer sometimes in this life, sometimes greatly, because Our Lady, our God, sees that through that sickness or situation, we're in fact gaining in heaven. So, Jesus, if you want to, you can cure me. But if you don't want to cure me, it isn't because you don't love me, but rather because you love me so much. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.